We are really happy to welcome you and to listen to your story. You have 20 minutes before welcoming our startups. Thank you very much.
Great. Let's do it. Hello, everyone. So I'm Adam, and this is Tikhon. Thank you for the introduction. I think we have 30 minutes where we're just going to blabber on and dialogue, I guess. It's not monologue, it's a dialogue. So I think probably the best format would be, I'm going to talk a little bit about my story just from a high level for like a minute or two, then Tikhon. Then we want to take on a couple of different topics that we think might be useful to talk about. So things like hiring or like finding an idea or finding a co-founder, fundraising or exiting or getting users, etc. So let's do that. Do you want to talk first about your story?
Yeah, sure. I started actually 2 companies in college that both failed. Was determined to keep going. My co-founder said, "Okay, I'll do it." This is after like the .com crash, unless I get this job at Microsoft, because back then, like getting a job at Microsoft was like a really big deal. Like they had just minted like a lot of millionaires, and of course he got the job. So then I'm like, okay, well I'll go to graduate school. Dropped out of grad school to join Y Combinator. Back when YC was tiny. Like Adam and I were actually in the same batch in Cambridge, and Scribd was like our 12th idea, but we tried like 11 different things before that, like none of which worked.
What did you try?
We tried like all kinds. Like remember Job Book? It was like it was for this one example of a bad company. Hopefully no one's doing this, because that'd be like really embarrassing for you. It was just a site that tried to help. It was trying to help connect students in colleges to getting their first job, because when I was looking for jobs, everything said like, "Oh, great job, 5 years, PHP programming required." And I was like, "Well, I don't have that," and like no one in college had that.
So it's like a job board for college students.
Yeah, basically, like the way corporate recruiting worked, like
yeah.
in American colleges. I just wanted to standardize that. So that flopped.
Well, Scribd was also originally Craigslist for colleges, right? Or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. Actually, which still doesn't sound like a terrible idea to me. But so Scribd was like the last idea, and no one would give us money. Like we were trying to fundraise, and just it was impossible. We spent so much time. One lesson I picked up from that was just like to get the traction, especially since we were unknowns, getting the traction first and the product market fit, because no one would give you money when there's no fear of missing out on the deal. That's how you get the investment typically.
You should talk about what Scribd does.
Oh yeah, sorry. So Scribd is the YouTube for documents, and this is, by the way, a terrible way to get ideas, but we were saying like what's hot right now? YouTube's hot. Well, Flickr did YouTube for photos kind of before that. Like what other media formats are there? And so X for Y is like this very common way that people pitch themselves in the Valley. It's almost like a cliche now, but it works, and investors are not typically very technical, and so it's really nice to have like a 3-word pitch. And if you can have like, for instance, like Parse, my last startup was Heroku for mobile. Everyone loves mobile, it's really hot, and everyone loved Heroku, which was at the time the biggest exit out of Y Combinator. Whereas with Scribd, it was like 1 degree. It wasn't as good because it was documents. Like documents are boring. But YouTube was hot. So yeah, Scribd does about 100 million unique visitors a month. The New York Times, Goldman Sachs all use it for embedding documents into web pages. So you upload a document, and we make an HTML5 web page out of it for you.
And it worked because of SEO.
Yeah, Scribd is largely an SEO-driven business where we have probably 20 to 50x the number of words that Wikipedia has. So there's a lot of content, and we have a lot of inbound links. So this strategy of distribution was that all the embeds, like when the New York Times blog embeds a document, they link back to Scribd. And so that gives us, so these really high page rank sites would give us a ton of link juice. And so most of our traffic was coming from Google. Although now it's a profitable company. It's 50 people in San Francisco.
Still independent.
Still independent. It has not sold. The founders, including myself, have chosen not to sell that one. And that's something we should talk about later, like when to sell or that sort of topic. And then right after Scribd, I left because I wanted to be CEO of my own company. And so I started Parse with 3 friends. And Parse, like I said, is Heroku for mobile, which actually doesn't really mean anything. It's just, it's what really Parse's value prop is that you can build native mobile applications much, much faster. Our experience building native apps, we had seen that everyone was recreating the wheel, sort of rebuilding all these same elements like social integration, storing data to the cloud, syncing across devices, all those sorts of problems with this really common feature set. And so that's where we came up with that. And again, with Parse, we tried out like 10 different ideas before Parse. We built landing pages. We'd throw up like collect email addresses. Hey, if you want to use this and get early access, like never call your thing beta, because beta means buggy to most people. Like I don't like using beta products. I know Google does this, but it's still a bad idea. Always say sign up for early access. You get a limited preview. Have this idea of scarcity. Started Parse. We figured out Parse was by far the winner out of all the ideas we tried. And we had a ton of emails. We emailed people, why do you want this? We looked at what kind of domain names they were coming from. Was it Gmail addresses or was it like @Symantec, because it's better if they're big company email addresses for us. And then we asked them, what do you actually want? And they'd say, oh, well, push notifications are a huge pain point and we hate urban airship. And so we put a lot of focus on push. And then Parse just sold a few months ago to Facebook for 85. And that process I'll talk about later. Yeah, 85 million, not $85. I couldn't afford a dinner here if it was $85. It was a really good exit for everyone. Facebook is keeping Parse as a standalone entity with its own office and using it as a new sort of revenue stream.
Awesome, sick. So that's hard to top.
That's pretty easy.
As Tikhon said, him and I were in the same Y Combinator class in 2006. And that was the 3rd Y Combinator class. We had 15 companies in our batch. The company I started is called Zobni, which is the word inbox spelled backwards. And we started out with the idea as much more vague. So back then we didn't know what the heck we were doing. I don't know, am I allowed to curse here? We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. So we start off with the vague idea of, oh, here's email. There's a lot of data inside of email. And my background was in machine learning and data stuff. So we said, well, let's just start out in this direction and kind of play around with it and see where we end up. So we started out by building this product called Zobni Analytics, which is analytics for your email. It could analyze all your email patterns and come up with any kind of chart or table or graph about how quickly you respond to people, how quickly people respond to you, who your top contacts are, what time of day Paul Graham is like sending you emails, just like any arbitrary thing. You remember that?
Yeah, that was awesome. I liked seeing that. Like PG would send emails at like 3 in the morning, like this giant blip of them. That was cool.
So there was interesting stuff there, but it wasn't the kind of data that would change that often. And so it wasn't a product that people would engage with on a daily basis. And it was really hard to make it actionable for people. So that's the problem with analytics. So what happens if you're like as old as Tikhon and I and stick around the valley for a while is you eventually develop a lot of like just mental kind of heuristics or patterns for things. So it's like, okay, there's like SEO is like a great way to get users. What you need for SEO is a lot of content and a lot of inbound links. And some type of content is easier to monetize than other types of content, and so on. And then, for things like analytics, from my personal experience, I learned that for analytics, you need it to be actionable, you need it to be dynamic, and you need it to be something that the user really cares about, and not just like a nice to have. So you kind of develop these different patterns in your head. I'm excited for office hours because I think we'll get to walk through and kind of bring up some of our experience and see how it applies. So we started Zobni in 2006. We did Zobni Analytics. Then we completely changed the product because it wasn't something that was getting traction with people. So we developed what we called the Zobni Sidebar, which is this tool that sits next to your email and shows you an information profile about the person who sent the email that you're looking at. So if I'm looking at an email from Tikhon, I can see his Facebook profile, his LinkedIn profile, all the files we've sent back and forth, our most recent conversations, who we know in common, and then we had really fast email search. And this was all built for Microsoft Outlook, which was a big pain in the butt to do.
And Outlook had terrible, terrible search, so like this was actually like a really valuable product.
Yeah, so it was really useful. We launched at the TechCrunch 40 conference, which was the first TechCrunch conference that they did in September 2007. And that was a lot of fun. And from there, we grew the user base. You know, we raised about $4 million about 6 months before we launched in a Series A.
And we were all so jealous, because back then, fundraising, even back then, was impossible. And when Adam raised money, I remember I was so jealous, because no one else could raise money. And Zobni was like the golden child of our like YC class.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to raise money in Silicon Valley now.
It's insane.
So we launched, we did the Zobni thing, and then we eventually ended up changing the direction of the company to be a mobile phone address book. So for Android, you drop it in. We were working with the carriers and OEMs to try to build in a drop-in replacement for the address book experience on your phone, so that whenever you go to find a contact on your phone, you have a list of everyone you've ever communicated with, even if you didn't add their contact information in explicitly. And we'd pull out phone numbers from email signatures and cross-reference from like other people's phone records to find the right information globally. And it's actually super, super cool. So Zobni sold about a week or two ago to Yahoo, and that was a good outcome for the company. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the technology that we've built. So that's kind of my high-level story. I'm now trying to put together the next company. So I'm kind of in a stage, which is a lot of what I think will be the ground that we'll be covering today, which is coming up with an idea, finding a co-founder, getting going, experimenting with different ideas, testing them quickly, and getting everything going. So I think that's kind of the high-level summary of Tikhon and I's background from 2006 through 2013. So we should probably talk about just kind of different topics. Yeah. One is getting users. I think this is a super important one.
That's a fascinating topic. Like, for instance, one of my favorite stories about that is, you guys know Reddit, reddit.com. It's like a top, probably 20 internet property now. When they started, you know, there was no one on it. They made like hundreds of fake accounts, and they would log in as all these accounts and keep posting material on the site. They don't even talk about this. It's a great story. And Steve told me, like, he remembered the day when he first saw someone else had posted a link. He's like, whoa, that's a link I didn't post on the homepage. And he was like so happy. And then like a few weeks later, none of the links were by them. Like, they didn't have to do it anymore. But they created this sense that there was a community when it was just these two young kids in an apartment, like eating like old Chinese food. Like, but you thought, I remember when I first was there, I was like, wow, this thing's taking off. Like, there's hundreds of people here. No, it was Steve and Alexis.
That's like the Paul Graham essay that he just published, which is do things that aren't scalable to get going, which is a great point.
Because PG talks about this, but a lot of folks, including I've been guilty of this too with Scribd. We thought, oh, we need this giant launch where we embargo this story across 8 news outlets, and then everyone will come. No, of course not. It's that sort of Reddit thing. Like with Scribd, actually, what we ended up doing is we made fake accounts and we uploaded a ton of content. And when you came to the site, it looked like it was already this booming thing. No, it was like the 3 of us, right? And we had posted a ton of content, and we went and looked for like really funny content. So we'd go to like Dig or Reddit, back before Dig committed seppuku. We stole we borrowed public content that was didn't have copyright on it and put it on the site.
Was that legal or illegal?
It was legal because we picked content that was
not explicitly copyrighted.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Cool.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I remember uploading all my college essays to Scribd.
Yeah.
Actually, I was probably one of your first legitimate users.
You were. Actually, you gave us the idea to do bulk uploading.
Yeah.
Because Jared, my co-founder, was like, who wants to upload more than one document at a time? And Adam, and we're at a party, and Adam's like, I do. Like, I want to upload 100 things at once. And Jared's like, really?
Yeah.
So like talking to users, you'll learn a lot. Like we were gonna totally destroy our own site by stopping people from uploading content, which sounds so stupid in hindsight. Like, let's make it harder for you to put content on the site. Like, that was not a good decision. Yeah, so Adam actually helped change that. Fate. Like, that's one cool thing about having a good startup ecosystem around you, is like people like Adam will give you that idea, which now seems obvious, but at the time was not at all obvious.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate the value of the ecosystem and your circle of friends. The people you hang out with. Tikhon and I hang out in San Francisco a lot, and we have a big group of people that we all connected in through Y Combinator, and we're always just talking about these things, like sharing these like little anecdotes of like, oh, this is how Reddit got started. Oh, this is like how company XYZ like raised their like atrociously large round. Or like this is like what happened with like the copyright problem that like company ABC like ran into, and like so you just like pick up all these like little stories of what happened. And they're the kind of things that you don't read online as much. Hacker News is like good for this. There's like a lot of this kind of stuff online, but there's a lot of stories that people don't want to talk about just because there's like maybe private information, whether it's like company secrets or it's like, you know, embarrassing information or whatever.
About getting users, so at Scribd and Parse, very different distribution strategies, but at Scribd, we did not realize actually SEO was going to be the main driver of traffic. Which,
really?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like seriously, I know, because we were kids, didn't know anything. I still don't know anything, and so like we thought it'd be more like YouTube. People would come to the homepage and like be like, oh, that's a cool document. Let me share it. That's not how Scribd works at all. It works as like people Google like, wow, I need a manual to fix my 1962 vacuum. You'd be amazed how many manuals we have and how much traffic that drives.
What about Parse?
Parse's distribution strategy was all, let's spam the hell out of Hacker News. Like, and let's write like a lot of evergreen content. This is the one thing you should all do. Like, this is a great strategy. Become like the thought leader in your space. Just write good content, write good blog posts, especially if you have like a co-founder who's not writing code. Have them write content like, for instance, one of our guys wrote top 10 ways you should be using push notifications in your mobile app. And like, no one else had written that kind of content. And it's actually really interesting to people who, for us, were doing app development. And people started thinking of Parse as like, oh, Parse gets everything in mobile. Like, these guys are smart and understand how mobile works, let's use Parse. Because we had competitors who were just like us, but we were considered the thought leaders. Also, if you can, I've noticed in Europe, I was in Moscow too, people buy a lot of bad domain names. You can buy, like Parse cost $15,000, Stripe.com was 12.5. You can find domain names that are not outrageously expensive, and sometimes it's worth investing in that.
Yeah, someone should start a startup to make that easier to do.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? How about finding an idea? How'd you come up with Parse?
So Parse and Scribd were very different. Okay, so let's start with the YC advice. And I don't know, I think maybe the family too is like solve your own problem. That's like one source of ideas. I actually am no longer a fan of this approach. It's still what Y Combinator recommends, but I find that my problems are like the problem, especially when I went like 5 years ago, it was like the problems of like very poor people who don't want to spend money. And like that's not really the customer that like you want. So like it works sometimes, like with Airbnb, like they wanted to make money and like they had all this extra space, so they rented out their apartment. But I much prefer this strategy I was telling Adam of like look for huge growing markets, and preferably one that you understand or know something about, and then just look at the Inc. 5000 list. You can Google this. It's online. It's free. You can look at the 5,000 companies who are growing the fastest by revenue over the last 3 years. Like one example is a company called Gazelle, which I happen to have issues with. They're like cash for gold for your electronics. You mail like your old iPhone in, And then what you do is one of three things. You either make like a much better version, like a 10x better version, the way Dropbox was like 10x better than everything else. That's hard, but if you're good, you can do it because most software companies suck. Right? Most of the software that you guys use, you probably don't even like it. Like I hate most of the software that I have to use. The second thing you can do is hit a vertical. Like, okay, I'm just going to be I'll just do the cloud file sharing stuff for enterprise. I'll be box.com now. Or you could or you can do it 10x cheaper, which is like the least attractive way.
Yeah.
But back to Gazelle, this company I really like that just launched called Sold is like, Gazelle sucks. Let's just build one that's like mobile only. And since people are already taking photos with their cameras now, why am I taking photos, putting them on my computer, and now I use the Sold app instead of Gazelle for like turning in my old iPhones.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, actually, Tikhon told me this a couple days ago, and I like went immediately to this Inc. 5000 list and started looking at them.
Yeah. So people are always looking for like I need this genius idea, and I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who get stuck on this phase. You really don't. Like none of the big companies you know about even were the first version. Like Facebook was not the first social network. Like MySpace killed themselves first. Google not the first search engine. Lots of other search engines. So it's like you can do something better than everyone else. You don't have to create a whole new market. Don't create a new market. Like that's almost always a disaster.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, what about co-founders? How did you find your co-founders?
Yeah, I actually went to high school with Trip, but we didn't know each other that well. We actually really met in NYC, and I joined up with them.
Yeah.
Finding co-founders, Adam, this is a great point. Like, it's just so important. Like, and also, I would sacrifice like a little bit of brilliance or like for someone I like and want to hang out with, like someone someone I hang out with 24/7, because that's just it ends up being so much more important. If you don't like your co-founder, I mean, it's worse than a marriage because at least with the marriage you can go to work, and get away from your spouse. But with a co-founder, it's like you spend. I mean, I was with Trip and Jared for 4 straight years, like living together, eating together, talking about Scribd,
totally.
sleeping on the office floor, like.
Yeah. It's really hard.
Like, I would be more careful picking a co-founder than my wife.
This is on tape, dude.
Well, I'm not married, so.
Okay, and then fundraising.
That'd be really embarrassing if I was married.
Okay, so fundraising. You guys like raised a monster round.
One last thing on co-founders. One thing that really surprised Paul Graham, he thought initially he'd only just let in smart kids. He's like, oh, smart kids will figure it out. Yeah. That's like all that actually matters is like determination and grit. Like that will compensate 10x over for like being bad. Like I know people who are bad who have built good companies just because they persevered. Like I said, Scribd, idea number 12. I do want to talk later about how we did things differently at Parse, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think dedication is really important. And there's this thing where if you both know that you're super determined to do it, then you don't want to let each other down. Whereas if you're in this environment where it's like one of the guys is like, oh, I'll work on the company as long as like Microsoft doesn't give me an offer, that's just like a really crappy feeling when you're working with that person, and it doesn't make you feel good. And startups require so much work and so much focus that it's really important that you like feel good in your like soul when you're working on the thing. We should talk about fundraising.
Yeah, so I've noticed this is true, especially in Europe. Like I was in Moscow, I said, you guys love talking about fundraising. Like, because in the States it's so much easier, and I think here it's really hard. But like that's all anyone wanted to talk about in Moscow. So we should certainly talk about that because it's impossible here. And Ab and I were talking about this, and it's the same reason why VCs don't want you to be like in New York and in the States, because there haven't been a lot of good exits, and people are very much like backwards looking. They'll say like, oh well, Google was in the Valley, and other big exits, and so it's really hard for you guys to raise money because there aren't a lot of exits here right now. And it's this chicken and egg problem. Fundraising, the way to do it is to create this fear of missing out. Like, so I'm actually an angel investor. I've invested in 20 odd companies, and Adam's done a bunch. Adam invested in Dropbox. That was smart. I'm sad I missed that one. And if you don't create this fear of missing out, that the deal's going away, people will just dither and wait, like, and like, oh yeah, let's get coffee again next Friday. So you have to, it's like dating a little bit, where you want to create the impression that that there's lots of suitors or people after you, and that it's going away, like you're getting hitched, right? And like once you're hitched, you're gone. And so you can do, there's a few ways to do this. I won't say the more like manipulative ways, but you can create this feeling pretty easily, right? Like, hey, it was great talking, like we have a lot of interest. And like once you get like your first investment offer, you can use that to get others like a lot easier. So even if the first one's bad, you just don't tell the terms of it. You just don't tell people like it's a bad offer. You're like, oh, we have an offer, it's great.
Did you guys do different valuations? Like the first investors got a valuation premium?
Parse or Scribd?
I don't know either.
Scribd, yes. Parse, no. I mean, Parse was all uncapped, no discount notes. That is like embarrassing for the Valley that was allowed to occur.
That's incredibly favorable. It's basically free money to the company.
And we were oversubscribed by 4x.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah. So you want Tikhon to be your co-founder is the answer.
But the thing is, I had learned, because Scribd, we raised $30 million, or maybe 35 now. So you kind of learn how this works and the way the investors think. Because it's really damaging to a VC, for instance, if they pass on a Dropbox. Like inside their firm, they lose so much social capital. So if you can create this impression that you might be a Dropbox.
But this works for angels too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the angels don't have this like lack of, well, I guess I lost social capital by not being in Dropbox.
Yeah,
but
social capital. Yeah, so you guys all have to start successful companies, so then you can become angel investors, and then you fix this problem of not enough angel investors in France. But I think it also means that you can focus on ideas that are going to have more built-in business models, and maybe can show traction more quickly. So you don't want to do a company, I don't know, what's like a super cash-intense company? You don't want to do like a nuclear power reactor or something, where you're going to have to raise like $80 million to get going, because it's going to be harder for you. So some companies are going to be more capital efficient, and some companies are going to be able to show traction more quickly. And even if you can start to show more traction in your business model, even if it's not a lot of money, I think just spiritually it's easy for an investor to buy into the vision that you're going to end up making a lot of money by the end. Yeah,
there are two ways to raise money, is the saying, right? You raise on the hype, or you raise on the traction. For first-time entrepreneurs, it's usually traction. Like Scribd's graphs were just like this when we launched, and so like that was easy. But before that, no one would touch us. No one would even return our calls. With Parse, I raised entirely on vision. I was like, listen, Heroku, huge, mobile's even bigger. We're gonna be like much bigger than that. And we didn't have any traction at that point. We'd barely launched. So that was more of like a vision play. Right. But what you don't, it's almost ironic, because like if you're making like a little bit of money, like if you're making like $1,000 a month, it can almost kill both, because then they think, oh, well, I don't really see how this becomes a big business. And so with Parse, I intentionally was not making money when I raised money, because making a little money can kill both the traction story and the vision story.
I wonder if that applies here too, though.
No, well, I was going to say, if I did things here, if I was like you guys, I think because fundraising here sucks. I mean, one company told me it took them like weeks to raise $20,000. I'm like, that is not a good use of your time. I would build a very different business here, one that inherently had a business model tied into it. Like Parse was going to take a lot longer to make like a lot of money. I would focus on companies that are kind of making money
like
immediately, like a Gazelle, like where every transaction you're making money, or like a card pool, like which is a gift card exchange.
Or Airbnb.
Yeah, they didn't charge for a long time.
Oh, really?
No, for a long time they were just listings.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens all the time when you're like hanging out. That's cool. Okay, cool. Well, I guess we're all set for this phase. So we're going to do office hours.
So you're Syntelligence.
That's right.
Great, okay. And what do you do?
I'm making the new generation of robots that doesn't look human, but behave human and understand humans.
Okay, so does it like manipulate objects, the robots?
No, it's not really interactive, physical interaction. It's more human interaction. So we're talking, I'm looking at your face, I'm looking how you react to my sentences, and I see how I can manage to steer the conversation somewhere or recover from some kind of misunderstanding.
Okay, so what is this used for? What would be like a use case?
Well, imagine that we have all this technology around us, lots of various interfaces, and this is a very complex ecosystem where you have a lot of things to memorize, to adapt to. A robot is the ideal platform to provide you with all these services, all this data, all this stream of information when you need it, and even on a proactive way, something that the computer never does.
So who do you think really needs this? And by the way, this goes back to ideas. Solving hair on fire problems is like really good. Problems that like people are like drive people nuts versus say like vitamins. You want to build a painkiller and not a vitamin because people are just lazy about taking vitamins and don't like paying for them. Although actually that's not totally true because the vitamin market's actually bigger than painkillers. But you guys don't know that, so like I can say that.
Well, you have to just imagine that it's more of an evolution of what we currently have. It's not creating.
But which customers really do you think need this? Like who needs this?
What the customer really wants, it's something natural, something you can interact with technology in a very intuitive way. You don't have to learn anything.
Sure. I guess I'm worried about. I worry like which customers are like going to be like who's like your first customer, or like who needs these right now?
Right now.
Like, and where would they put them? Like, is it at the airport when I'm checking in?
That's a very good example.
No, but like, do they need this? Like how? Like, so that's something I would worry a little bit, or I would worry about finding out who really needs this.
Right. Okay. There are some niche markets. You can imagine. Since we are analyzing the behavior of the person we're interacting with, there are niche markets that rely on how the people behave and if they can extract information from this. You can think of health issues, detecting if people have some sort of autism, or these are very niche markets.
Right, but you want, so like in general, right, it's one good strategy is just you want to find a segment of people who love your product. You want to, it's better to delight a few people than to have like a bunch of people who are like, okay, this is cool, right? So who are those people who are like going to be like delighted and like absolutely need this, you know?
Right.
I don't fully understand what it actually is. Like it's perception software that will detect when I'm like upset or when I'm sad or like.
That's part of it.
When I'm okay, and then it also has like an interface, right? Like it's like a piece of curved glass or something that you project a facial image onto that will move its mouth and so on. So I don't know, something for kids or something for like. I don't know, some behavior profiling, something. How about something like surveillance? Like if someone's like walking through like a building and they're like really angry looking, then you want to stop them or something.
Yeah, because the NSA needs more help watching us.
But actually, that's something we were thinking of. You know, this sort of robots in stores where they have lots of shoplifting. Yeah. And so we were thinking that, well, okay, if you have a robot that looks at you, you might just think twice before doing
Maybe.
it.
It's like a scarecrow.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think like interfaces between humans and computers where it's an information interface, like I'm trying to check in online, or I'm trying to like figure out what like the score of like the like Red Sox game is or something. Like the interfaces that we have are pretty good for that. And like, so I think maybe like more emotional centric kind of stuff is, but you definitely like need to figure out what your specific use case is, because if you don't know what your specific use case is, you don't really know what to build or like what customers to go talk to. And it's okay not to know, you just have to go figure that out. So like I would try to come up with a list of like 30 different like things like this, like scarecrow for shoplifters, or like maybe some like emotional processing software for I don't know, I'm sure there's like some niche in there. But also I feel like it sounds like you're like an expert in computer vision, and there's just a ton of like stuff to go do in computer vision that I think is interesting.
Yeah, I just want to add one point. Like, you've built, your tech is really cool. I saw your like one-page PDF. Yeah, I just worry that it's like a really cool technology looking for a problem to solve.
No, it's actually trying to solve a solution. Do you ever have seen elderly people interact with a computer?
Yeah, my parents with an iPad.
Yeah, all right.
My parents with an iPad?
Well, then here in Europe, it's not that easy. You have a lot of people, elderly people, that have really troubles interacting with computers.
Yeah, but
if you provide them with something that talks like them and understand them, then it's easier.
But the hard part is not the emotional processing, right? It's like Siri can like help me set my alarm, but it can't like help me like find out like what time my flight is leaving tomorrow, because it's like so. They're like more fundamental problems than like the emotional interface piece. So I guess I would try to sharpen my vision for like what the problem is that I'm solving, because like I've heard different things. I've heard like emotional perception. I've heard like emotional like transmitting, like being very human-like, and I've heard like kind of this like NLP dialogue, information retrieval kind of stuff.
That's right.
And I would pick like one of those and like pick like a vertical for like one of those, you know? So like it's much better to say like, oh, we like solve shoplifting for like large retailers. And we put like video cameras like all throughout the store, and they like track people as they move, and they detect if someone's putting like an item inside their jacket, and then we like throw an alarm or whatever, right? Or maybe it's like retail analytics. Maybe it's like, oh, we track people as they move around, and we can tell how much time people spend looking at these like end caps or like, you know, whatever. Or maybe it's like a demographic thing. Maybe it's like, oh yeah, we track like if you advertise in this like female like magazine, we can tell how many more females came to the store like that week, right? So like I would try to find more of like a specific problem and a specific solution, because it feels like you're still trying to narrow down what it is that what it is you're building, and like for what reason.
Yeah. That's a problem we have with very technological products. You know, it's not very specific for a market. There's a lot of different variations.
You've got to. Sorry, it's like this Paul Graham essay that he just published on like finding like starting with like something very specific, right? So it's like Facebook started within Harvard, Yelp started within San Francisco, you know, Reddit started within like the tech community, and all these like things that eventually grew to become successful on a broad scale all started with a specific thing. Like Microsoft started with like a basic compiler, right? And then they spread to other programming languages, and then they spread to operating systems, and then they spread to Office software. But you can't, like your business plan from the beginning can't just be, we're going to do this whole set of things. I would find like a specific customer who you can go talk to, and that person will like say like, yes, like I really want this, and yes, like I'm willing to pay like X dollars for this thing.
Okay.
So that'd be my feedback.
Like what's your current status right now? Like, do you have demos, prototypes that like you can go give customers now?
Yes.
Or you do? Okay.
Yes.
So are people using it right now?
Well, we're selling to academia, so they're using these robotic heads for their scientific experiments and trying to improve the state of the art also in human-robot interaction. So we are collaborating with lots of
Wait, so what exactly are they doing with the product?
For instance, you know, a machine is stupid. Obviously, you have to program a lot of knowledge in the machine for it to start to understand the world. So a first way to pick up what's important in the world is to look at where the human is looking at. For instance, when you're manipulating an object, then the robot is looking at what is the object you're looking at, because that's probably what you wanted to teach, right? You want that sort of focus, and because obviously a picture, all the robot can hear is a lot of mess for the robot. You need to focus it, and that's through the human that you can focus it to something specific.
Okay, and so when you talk to the users, last question, when you talk to the users, like what is their feedback like about like their experience? Are they in love with it? Like, okay,
pretty much all of them are in love with it.
Well then, okay, I mean, so are you selling it, or what are you doing?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, in that case, keep talking to those users. I mean, what are they saying? Like, what else do they want it to do?
The next body parts, really. Okay. That's it. Cool. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Tikhon. Hey, Tikhon.
Okay. So, hi, hello everyone. We are Drop, and we allow everyone to deploy a website with Dropbox. It's just super easy. So.
It says Dropbox here, but it previously said GitHub. Did you
Yeah,
change?
exactly. Good question. Yeah, we started with GitHub, but we target novice developer, and we figure out it was too complicated for them.
It was
to
too
manage
complicated for the people. These are developers. Is your audience?
Novice developers.
Huh?
With a
novice
developer. Sorry. Yeah.
So it's a typical. It'd be like a Heroku kind of customer.
Heroku is very easy for developer who have a lot of experience. Okay. But if you just start to code, it's very complicated to manage.
Right.
So here we are.
Okay. So this is targeted to novice PHP developers.
Yeah.
That's your
exactly.
audience. Okay. So Pass in general is a really, really hard space. I guess Parse was Pass-like, and Heroku was too. .cloud, AppFog. These companies make no money. Because developers, especially novice ones, don't want to pay for anything. And like you'll often hear them say like, I'll just build my own parse. Why would I pay you $5 a month? Like it's really annoying. It's like if you knew how much work I did, that's so insulting. But the trouble is like, right, like those people like are bad customers because they're checking their cards every month, their monthly statements. And like they'll switch off as soon as they can, or if their app's not working. Whereas what you really want, you never want consumer credit cards, and there are exceptions, but you want corporate cards. Because like I will spend cash like crazy on my corporate card, like and I'll let services just sit there for years that I'm not even using, and not just me. Like this is true for the Fortune 5 million, the 5 million biggest businesses, but consumers. And like especially developers, we are the cheapest bastards.
Yeah.
And so it's like this is the kind of company. I just did this. This is the kind of company where you have to build up, like Adam was saying to me earlier, like a really good team and be experts in it. Then like kind of hope to get acquired because it's not the kind of company that IPOs. And there's nothing wrong with that. And at some point, I want to talk about the sort of everyone wants to build Dropbox. There's lots of good ideas that are. Like maybe not home runs, they're doubles, that make 10 million a year. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and the thing, it's not exactly the same target. The story, it's a few months ago I started to learn how to code, and I figured out it was very difficult to manage the hosting. Yeah. So it's for this we decided to build this solution, and the target, it's like you learn to code on Code Academy, and after you need to deploy the website. So it will be for your company, for your own company, or in a huge company and you want to deploy a advertising website for one project, and you can do it by yourself.
No, this is great. I personally have 20 apps running on like Heroku, say, when people learn to code, which is like Dev Bootcamp, they all use these sorts of PaaS services. They're super useful. Like I'm really glad they exist. I just don't want to build them because they're bad businesses.
Yeah, okay.
So, but like I'm glad someone else is doing it.
So what could they do, or what would you recommend?
PaaS is really, really bad. The margins are really bad. Customers are really bad. PaaS is platform as a service. It's these. It allows. Heroku.cloud. It's these companies that like their value prop is you don't need to think about servers anymore. You don't need that ops guy anymore. The trouble is no one wants to hear that, and everyone wants to hear instead, which is what I learned at Parse, all people want is distribution and more revenue. If you can bring people those two things, they'll come knocking down your door. If you say we're going to save you one developer, save you one ops guy, it's like it's a really hard pitch to sell to people. And so at Parse, we made much more money off of push notifications than we did. And push is like really simple. Like anyone can build it. But the reason it worked is because we weren't selling to developers anymore. We were selling to marketing departments. So it's really important to know. So first off, you want to be selling to like companies that are more than one amateur Code Academy kid who doesn't have money and doesn't want to pay money. So what we did is we would tell people in the marketing departments, hey, you guys should be able. And there's lots of buzzwords you throw around. Sales is an ugly game, but it works. There's a reason salespeople exist, right? But you say like, listen, you want to send. You marketers should be able to send a push notification to all Giants fans in your app at 9 a.m. in their time zone. And they're like, oh yeah, we should totally do that. And marketers have huge budgets, so it's really interesting inside organizations. I didn't know this for a long time, the way budgets work. Marketing has huge budgets because they bring in distribution and they bring in like more customers. So like they have big budgets. You know who does not have big budgets? The head of engineering. That guy has a bad budget, or that girl. So you want to be selling to the folks who have like larger purse strings and who have corporate cards. Like that's just something I'll do next time.
So what would you do if you were these guys?
I would try to find the equivalent of like push notifications or something like that, where my client is not a novice Code Academy developer. Because there might be a lot of them, but they're very price sensitive. And you'll have high churn because most folks abandon their early apps. And once you get big, Heroku has this problem too of this adverse selection problem where once customers would get really big on Heroku and their bills got huge, they just switched off and got their own servers and hired an ops guy because they were making lots of money. So it's like suddenly all your best customers are fleeing. And that sucks because then you're left with the bad ones. And so you guys remember when Chargeify canceled their free plan? So like Chargeify was just a stupid subscription. It is a subscription billing service that helps you with subscription billing. And they canceled their free tier, which was basically novice developers, because they're like, these people suck because they're not paying us any money and they're 95% of our support requests. But all those people were on Hacker News just yelling and screaming, but it was the right decision for Chargeify as a business. And then, because the people who pay you, actually, it turns out, never ask for help or support, because they're like competent. Whereas you're just going to be in questions all day long, like from novices, and you're going to be like explaining how to do LS from the command line,
Yeah.
So basically, they should do something else.
Well, I think you can. I mean, I don't know. So I would just try to target a different kind of. I think you can so Parse. No, I mean Parse did this too. So Parse kind of started off like this. But we just ended up realizing that there was a better segment, which was push notifications. We really focused on that because that makes a lot more money than the rest of the company.
Is there anything that they could sell to marketing departments that are associated with lightweight applications?
Not marketing necessarily.
I like that thread of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering. Yeah, so I'm wondering, who else do you guys think you like?
It could be okay. We built your website. You built the website on Drop, and maybe we can bring some traffic in addition, or things like this.
Oh, so you mean you'd help me with distribution to my PHP app? How would you do that? So I'm a novice developer. I've built some really ugly PHP code, although all PHP code is ugly. So, How would you help get people to use my app? It just feels like a different business.
Yeah, it's just a conversation, and it's a good point. And I try to think with what you said.
Yeah, email me later. I'll try to think about this because I've had this problem, and I've had friends who have this problem, like .cloud. And so far, the only solution I've seen is like you find like a vertical like push to focus on.
Okay.
Like, okay, how about that company Pusher? They're doing really well. Pusher, Pusher. Check them out. I think I've heard they're doing well, and they're like push for your web apps.
Okay. Okay.
Another one might be, could you just get like an army of like bad PHP developers who can do consulting for marketing departments who are trying to get something built that's like really.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you could. Yeah, okay. That general thread. If you have a large audience of like aspiring developers, that has value. Maybe you can extract value from that. Yeah, that's good. Something.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Howdy.
I'm Rafael from
Tikhon.
Cool.
Nice to meet you.
Where are your 9 co-founders?
Working.
Just a joke.
That's a good answer.
That's a great answer.
Okay, so Price Match helps hotel manager sell their rooms at an optimal rate in order to maximize their revenues, a bit like airline companies with the price of tickets.
Yeah, actually, I really like this idea. I was surprised it doesn't exist already, that like hotels haven't already used algorithms to figure out what the right price is for rooms.
So there are tools designed for big chains, and this is mostly business intelligence. So they give a lot of numbers, and these tools are designed to be used by professional yield managers. We aim hotels that are managed by the own director of the hotel, who doesn't have lots of time to spend on it, and who only wants to know what is the best price.
Yeah, I love ideas like this that are like businesses that like no one else ever thinks about or like knows about. That's a niche that where you're delivering value that's immediately measurable. So you can just take a cut. You can be like, okay, I'm going to manage your inventory, but in exchange, you know, whatever the pricing model is, I'll get like 1% of the value of the hotel rooms that you have reservations for.
Yeah, this idea, there's 3 great things going here. One is that your pitch is make more money as opposed to like save money. Like you always want to sell top line, like more distribution, I'll get you more customers, I'll make you more money. 2, just like Adam said, they can measure ROI, like return on investment. So they say, yeah, we're paying you this, but we're getting back 10x that.
Yeah, that's
which is like, that's huge. This is actually why Google AdWords works so well, because marketers can figure out their ROI. And 3, hotels is such a great space because in travel, that's where all the money is. All these companies like Kayak who do flights are effectively lead gen for hotels. You make no money when you sell airline tickets. And this is why Kayak, when you go there, they'll like annoyingly change the default homepage to hotels, and you're like, no, I'm trying to find a flight. But they make all their money on hotels. And this is true for all these travel companies, because hotels have this massive problem where they might have huge inventory right now, and they're willing to pay. They're willing to give you, the startup, a ton of money just to fill that inventory, because otherwise they're just throwing away all that money.
Yeah, this is a great idea. I love this.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so what are your problems? What's like on your mind these days?
We're having trouble making our client pay right away. There's a huge delay between the moment the client signs up and the moment he starts paying. Because, well, at first we started offering a free trial period, and hotel managers in France especially don't like paying, so they try to increase this delay even more. And we are having a few troubles interfacing with their PMS, property management systems, which are the softwares in which the bookings are stored, and we need to be interfaced with them. And these are big actors, so we don't have a lot of negotiating power right now. Yeah. So we're interfacing with them, but it's a slow process. So there is a cost to enter the market.
Can you somehow take a cut of the extra revenue that you're bringing into them? Because that would just be like a win-win, right? Like, yeah,
we're
like they make money, you make money.
We're thinking about this pricing design, but the thing is that well, you have to wait maybe 1 year before you know how much you'll be paid, and it's hard to say very precisely. We are responsible for such a percent in the raise of the revenues, and the market is responsible for such a raise.
I mean, immediately I think of two ways to do this. One, they have data from last year, what they charged and made. But more likely, two, they know what they would have charged, like for like a Tuesday, and then you say, no, charge 2x that. And if you're right, I don't know. I feels like
or just take half the rooms. You manage half. The free tier is like you manage half the rooms for them, or maybe 10% of the rooms, and then that's the trial. And then the other 90%, they do whatever they were doing before.
It's hard to separate, because if you sell a room at a lower price, this one is going to be sold first.
Yeah.
And they're forced to have the same rates on all the channels like Expedia booking. So it's really hard to make a real taste.
Okay.
And moreover, we don't know what would have been the baseline scenario without us, because you said we could have known which price they would have, at which price they would have sold their room, but not exactly, because they can argue that they would have changed the price anyway. So it's really tricky to implement.
Could you just say, like, okay, 1 hour out of every 24 hours, we're going to change your prices to like what we think is the right price, and then that's the free tier. Would that work? And you change the hour every day. It's like, okay, today it's like from like 1:30 to.
I see a kind of bias but it might work, but I see a kind of bias which would be that if the customer knows that at such a time the price are going to be different, you might. I don't know. But that's worth thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely I think this is probably going to be the most important question for the business: is what is the business model and how do you structure the incentives so that you're a no-brainer for them to adopt, and you can capture the upside that you're creating with the more accurate pricing. And then once you figure that out, I think it's just like a lot of just execution, right?
Yeah. But what's the current state of the company? Like, how do you do distribution? You have 300 odd customers. Is that fair?
We started selling our product in January. We have like 100 customers up and running on the website, and we have like 150 on the pipe, just waiting to be interfaced with.
And how did you acquire these customers?
So mainly door-to-door selling, very basically.
So you just like show up at like a chain of like, who's the best? Is it like who's a better customer? Is it like a high-scale hotel? Is it like a low-end brand of motels chain? Like
individual hotels and small chains at the moment, and we're talking with bigger chains, but it takes more time because they're big actors.
Who do you think captures the most value in the hotel space from you? Which yeah, like the really expensive hotels, like like the Ritz, or do you think do you capture more value for like the little inns on the like where like there's one owner for like 100 of those inns in like like in the Northeast states?
I'd say the Ritz would capture more value because they have more space to move their rates, but still I think we're relevant for any kind of hotels because small hotels are badly managed. So that's where we come.
Do you guys have sales DNA in the company? Like, does anyone who's in the company have experience selling anything to hotels like before?
No, to be honest, we just came out of school, of university.
Yeah.
We're thinking about finding a professional commercial, but one of our interns in charge of sales has had great success.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it's a great idea. I think you just have to execute on setting up the sales team and the sales process, and there's a lot that goes into that. There's all the sales collateral, like identifying the best customers, identifying the best marketing channels into those customers, doing marketing, doing sales. Is it inside sales? Is it outside sales where like the salespeople stay inside the building and are on the phones, or do they actually have to go there? And like figuring out what the sales cycle is. Is it like 2 steak dinners or like 12 steak dinners, and like just trying to figure out all these different things is, I think, a lot of what's going to make the difference between being like a base hit and a home run.
Yeah, but and I think that PGSA mentioned this. The first sale should always be done by founders. Speaking of which, like, what's going on with the team? How big is the team?
We're 6. We're 9 full-time people. We are 6 associates,
okay,
and 3 of which are developers, and the others are more on the sales side.
Okay, and then how many co-founders?
4.
4 co-founders?
The structure is weird. We're 6 associates, and society is divided into 6.
Sorry, I'm lost.
Well,
no, I'm just confused. I don't understand.
There are 4 co-founders.
Yeah.
But and two more associates. And
Okay.
each, so this makes 6.
I just don't know what associate means.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I mean, most startups give equity to employees. And that's. Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Okay.
And there are 2 CEOs?
We were thinking about doing a structure with 1 CEO and 1 COO.
Yeah, I mean, I would just try to really figure this out. There's like, if I were an angel investor and we were talking about me angel investing, my number one concern would be, there are a lot of things that can go wrong in a startup, and startups are really hard. And so, as a startup, you don't want to take risk on like having a different team structure, or having a different equity structure, or having using like some obscure language inside your office instead of this other, instead of English or French or whatever. Like, you just want to like make as many things as low risk as possible. And there's a lot that can go wrong inside of teams where, like, you had 4 co-founders at Parse, right?
And that was a disaster. Like, everyone told me don't do 4 co-founders, and I did it anyway, and it's like so hard because like making decisions can be, unless you have one person who is just like the established like dictator, it can be really hard for 4 people to agree on. 4 people, you can't agree where to go for dinner with 4 people.
And like
Try to figure out like whether we should hire a VP of sales now or not.
And like one person, if you had to make a decision, if you had to have all 4 people in the room to make a decision, then you're like screwed, because you're going to make decisions a lot more slowly, because one person will always be like traveling or just gotten married or like just obscure stuff. So there's a story that Tikhon and I were talking about earlier, which is Excite, the like search engine company. They raised some money in like 1995 or something from Vinod Khosla. And they had like 5 co-founders. And one of the things that Vinod did, and like I would do this if I were an investor, I would say like, I'll invest, but like only if you can figure out this team thing. And like at most like 2 co-founders and like 1 CEO, and the CEO has to be the co-founder, and then like everyone else is like more of an employee. And it's like really hard conversations to have, but it's just the kind of thing that can like derail the company in so many ways. It'd be like trying to like fight a war if you have like 1 leg or something. Like it's like really hard to move quickly.
Yeah, just one last point about Excite. Like, they were just out of this group of 5. There was one clear tech leader who everyone kind of looked up to, and that was Graham, and then there was Joe, and they were like the 2 real, all the team recognized this, and so they changed up the cap table to give more equity to those guys. And those guys became the decision makers, because you're just going to find that I'm not sure how you guys work internally, but when you have too many people trying to make decisions, it's that whole too many cooks in the kitchen like a metaphor, where it's just you end up with like really crappy soup.
And you're going to end up with like the people who aren't like the CEO, for example, are going to end up with more value anyway. They're going to make more money out of it because the company will be more successful, I think.
Okay.
Well,
cool. Thanks a lot for your advice.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Going good. We're a motion lead. So basically, we are a tech startup focusing on bringing interactivity and dynamism to mobile advertising.
Yeah. So if I were pitching you, I'd call you guys a mobile ad network, because that's a really hot term right now.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, this is a good point that actually Audrey made. If you can't explain your startup in 1 sentence, and preferably less than like 4 words, like you're gonna have a really hard time, not just communicating to like investors, especially investors, but other potential employees, everything else. So you should have your pitch honed to like 4 words. You're a mobile ad network.
Basically, this is the strategy we are using right now to talk about our product, because it's a technology. Basically, what we do is display ads in a whole new way, which is interactive and dynamic. And so what we decided to do is be an ad network for now, because we're also thinking about selling it as a white label to other people. But right now, it's to other agencies.
Why would you white label
networks.
sell? Because I mean, you have the. So I've seen the product, and this is cool actually. I'm actually an investor in a different mobile ad network. You might actually know them.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I should just let Adam talk. I really like mobile ad networks, right? I mean, everyone talks about mobile and it's growing like crazy. If you read Mary Meeker's reports, mobile is just blowing up. Everyone is aware of that. Ads still suck in mobile. People pay incredible amounts now for like installs. I think it's like $3 an install now if you can get someone an install. So this is the example of like a huge growing market, and it also has like the sex appeal, where like you're in a sexy industry where it's going to be easier to raise money than if you're like, I don't know, selling shoes.
Yeah, basically this is what we noticed, because we created an app a year and a half ago, and we actually have 600,000 active users, monthly active users, and 1.8 million downloads. And it was free, so we were putting ads, and like it was not good. It was not good for the experience, and we're really focusing on that. And so we decided to create like our new format, like to create something that is more effective.
And it's animated, right? So you have animated ads that aren't just like a square.
Basically, it's like the rich media on mobile, and with the flexibility you have on the web, because on the web it's easy to set up a new campaign. You just have to update the website. When you have to update an app, it's more complicated, and this is something we could focus on because we just push it.
Yeah. So just for the audience, if you guys don't know these guys, it's a mobile ad network that has like animated ads, like like how Yahoo has those like really like annoying things that run around the screen. It's a little bit like that, but you end up clicking on it because I'm just curious. Like I'll see this like chimpanzee running around the bottom of my screen, and I'll just click on it. And so I suspect you have very, very high click-through rate.
Yeah, we obtain 10% CTR click rate instead of 0.2 we were getting on our app on over 250,000 users.
And what's really cool, right, is your value prop is make more money, and we're a better ad network. Look at our click-through rate. We strictly dominate everyone else. So it's a pretty good value prop.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. So what now?
What now? We have our main challenge. We are in a funny market because it's really hard to find people to give money to. Basically, going to publishers, developers, and tell them integrate our technology, and we'll pay you for that. And it's the hardest part because they fear of integrate something else, and we've noticed that, well, basically the advertisers are interested in trying our technology, but to get the audience to show.
So yeah. Who are you approaching? Like, because who are you talking to? Because I know mobile ad networks, and they're not having a hard time getting people to sign up.
Well,
who's doing the sales? And what is your process?
Yeah, no. Right now, we really focused during like the last months creating the technology. We're 3 tech co-founders, so not only focusing on the marketing. And right now we discussed with some people, and they're like, okay, but can I get the control? How hard is it to integrate? And it's really easy. But it's a long process. It's a long process to get the audience big enough to display your ads. And
okay, who's using you now? Who are your bigger customers?
Okay, so we're just launching. So our own app, which we're using as a kind of a laboratory to try our technology and how to create case studies.
So right now there's one app using it, and it's your app.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
we're
that's
really,
fine.
we're really launching.
There's nothing wrong with being like a young startup.
Yeah,
but, so you guys haven't really done the customer development and sales process yet.
Not at all yet.
Got it.
It's really
that makes much more sense.
We're just starting.
I mean,
to do that.
right? What kind of customers do you think you should be approaching? Because I would think customers who already use crappy ad networks, if you can promise them better or more money, I'm going to switch. Just like I use yield, but Scribd uses yield build because we make more money that way than we did if we use just AdSense. Yield build just says, actually, we think this other ad network will make you more money.
Is there a yield build for mobile?
No, but that's a great startup idea. Someone here should do that. Seriously, because people just want to make money. You all want to make. I mean, I want to make money.
Yeah, maybe these guys should do that, and then roll in their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, right now their product's different than that, but yeah, they could. I mean, someone should do it if it's not done.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a company called Segment.io which does kind of if you're a mobile website or if you have a mobile app, there are all these different analytics tools you can use. And Segment.io is like, instead of having to integrate with each one separately, and then you have to roll out a new version of your app, you can just integrate with Segment.io, and then they'll send all of your events to all these different analytics tools, so you don't have to roll out new versions of your software or like modify your source code to do it. Maybe you guys could do something like that, where it's like someone can just drop in your SDK and then they could advertise on your thing, or they could advertise on the same one that they already advertise on, and they can flip the switch over the web. They don't have to update the software through the App Store. And then that lowers the barrier to adoption for your potential customers, because they can always go back to the old thing that they were using before, but if you're working out, they can keep it switched to you, and you know that you're better than whatever they're using now, so they will keep it switched to you.
Yeah, no, this is something we're also thinking of, and we're really setting up on all of that, and this is, we want to give control also to the developers, and basically what we like to say is that we created a technology by developers and for the developers.
Yeah, it feels like you guys should
it's not
like,
only banners, and this is something.
Like you guys, it sounds like you have the tech down, which is awesome for, especially in advertising, because a lot of people in advertising aren't technologists. So there's like a plethora of like salespeople in the ad world, and if you can find the right like 1 or 2 people to work with to drive your sales or do your sales process or your BD for you, your business development, then it sounds like that might be an interesting way to look at this problem from like a DNA perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to hear more about why people are hesitant to use you. Is it just because you're young and you're just launching, or have you actually been trying to sell to other apps?
We talked to a few people, but more like, early stage, and we're showing the technology.
Are these like
what
individual?
was possible.
Who are these people? Are they
no,
companies?
mostly individuals right now.
Okay, yeah,
not the big editors.
Yeah, okay. I mean, so what do you think your next steps should be?
No, our next step should be to grow our audience and make people install the SDK. But this is like, we're just starting to do that, and we don't have any really experience on this market. And not being,
it's just 2 of you guys?
There's a third one here.
Okay. Do any of you have like sales DNA, or like? Do any of you want to go talking to customers and talking to apps and say, "Hey, kings of that game, that huge game"?
We're not like the geek that is inside his garage. We can talk to people. It's okay, but we're really not. That's not being a tech co-founder. No, I mean it's more about.
You guys have like the good side of this problem, right? It's like if there's like the yin and the yang, you have like the yang, and the yang is the hard one to get. So just go find your yin, and you'll be fine, right? I mean, you guys like look like young people. Like I'm sure like it's harder for you to do sales, and you're like less experienced. You don't speak the lingo, you know, and like you don't know a lot of people in the ad world. It's like very relationship driven, and especially like in Silicon Valley, it's just like. Oh, like everyone knows everyone else, and there's also like really high turnover. So any given person in this community has like worked in like 4 different companies that have been ad networks, 4 different ad networks, and so they all like have other people they've worked with in the past, and like it's just very relationship driven. And so I think you guys like have awesome technology, and you've shown like really top-notch performance on increasing conversion. So now it's just about kind of finding your yin, you know, and I don't know how to do that, especially in Paris.
I mean, it sounds like you're just super early, and like, but I mean, so I'm curious, is getting the apps to integrate you harder right now than getting the ad inventory?
No, can you?
Because there are so in advertising, there are 2 sides, right? You have to have someone paying, like Johnson & Johnson says we want an ad in this app and make a dancing Band-Aid at the bottom of the app. Yeah. And then there's the game or the mobile app that says, oh yeah, we want to make money, we'll display that, right? Yeah. So how do you guys look at those 2, and so far what have you done there? And well, we're out of time.
But yeah, right now people that want to run campaigns with our ads is not the hardest part. It's really about, but it's probably for us.
That's good. And there are always like these like pay for performance things where you can just like, you don't actually have to convince someone that you have a great ad unit. You can just run it for them and create it yourself and then get paid on the conversions, right? So, but how do you find someone who's like your BD person in Paris? And like, I'm sure there are these people. They've got to be here somewhere. But like, I would just like go try like network as much as possible and like find like 1 or 2 people and like hire them like on contingency, like on commission. So it's like, and if they're not good, like fire them. Like there are all these like mistakes that people make working with these people, especially like nerds and so forth. So yeah, I mean, that's the game. And like, I would also try to find like mentors, if not like angel investors who have been successful in starting online advertising companies in Paris, and like try to get someone to help you build out like the sales BD side of the house. Okay, yeah, this is our challenge, building the team.
Yeah, like get someone from like Blue Lithium involved, or someone from like what was that, Right Media? Yeah, like one of those, like or what's that one Google bought, that ad network? No, the other one, the mobile one. AdMob. Yeah, AdMob. Get someone from AdMob who like was helping with, you know, getting apps to use it. Yeah. They probably had the exact same problems you are.
Yeah. Cool. All right, great.
Thanks a lot.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Great, nice to meet you. Okay, so Philip, this is the, your app will plug into my email and automatically extract contact information from the people I've communicated with, including in email signatures, and add that information automatically into my address book.
Yeah, exactly. In your address book and in your CRM if you're using Salesforce or iRise or CRM like this.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, great. So you've released software already, right?
Yeah,
You've
it's
shipped
working
software.
on Gmail and Outlook.
So who are your biggest customers in terms of like niche? Is it like salespeople or like people using high-rise or?
Currently our biggest customer are inside Gmail and Google Apps. It's first it's VCs and startups, then salespeople, marketing people, and we're seeing some strange traction with realtors in the United States.
Yeah.
Realtors, people who sell
realtors.
Realtors.
So so I did Zobni, which is very similar.
Yeah. Well, you were an example for us.
I mean, my first piece of advice, it would be like avoid Outlook, like, or doing anything heavy inside of Outlook is horrible to work with. I lost, like, the reason I look so much older than that photo is because I wrote software for Outlook.
That's okay. You still look young.
It's really bad. Okay, so we found the same thing, that because Zobni helped people manage relationships, it worked best for people who had a lot of relationships and managed a lot of different relationships. So an engineer would be a bad customer because the average engineer, you know, is like more introverted and doesn't work with a lot of different people inside their job on a daily basis. So it's really people like realtors, salespeople, executives, consultants, people like that who manage a lot of relationships that got the most value out of our software. And from looking at your product, there have been like similar products like in like previous generations of like email platforms. And I think it's historically been the kind of idea that where you can, it's kind of a cash flow business. You know, it's not like a high growth startup that's going to be like $1 billion company, but you can actually make like reasonable revenue from it. And I'm actually really happy that you're charging your users already. Is that right?
Yeah. We have a freemium model, but the freemium is really limited. So we're charging in Gmail after the first month, and on Outlook either you pay or you don't use it.
So are you focusing right now on marketing and distribution, or do you have like a larger vision of things, other software you want to build?
No, currently we're really focused on distribution.
Okay.
Really, our main problem is getting more people on board.
Okay, so what has been working so far?
Well, that's the problem. Everything is working a bit. You know, we have linear attraction and we can't succeed in getting, we're in the tens of thousands of users. It's really hard to go to the hundreds of thousands of users. The only thing that works in a repetitive way is public relation. Every time we have a great article, something on TV, and we get this bump, and the bump doesn't endure.
So, can you focus on like a niche? Earlier you mentioned realtors, and maybe like salespeople are a really good niche because they have tons of money to spend. and they can measure kind of the increased returns they get.
That's yeah, the ecosystem is falling on you. That's okay. I'll keep an eye on it.
That felt like an assassination attempt.
Yeah.
Someone from Stack Mob came after me. Okay. That was scary. Anyway, yeah, but so maybe like, what users can you most delight? Like, who will be like using your product and saying like, oh my God, I need this, I can't live without this.
You are right. This is salespeople. Salespeople and maybe project manager who manage several projects at the same time, like consultant, that kind of people. But salespeople mostly. I
mean, so Adam is the expert on this stuff. But like this market always scares me. Like companies like Reportive. They end up doing small exits, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to later talk about that. But the market's really hard because it's just not clear who's paying for it, unless you can really nail a niche like salespeople or something like that. Because like general people, like the average Joe out in the street, doesn't want to pay.
And so probably doesn't even need our product for their personal life.
Yeah, so
it's really a business product.
Yeah, so this is like something you'd want to segment to like people who have corporate cards or can pay money.
Exactly. Question is, how do we reach them? How do we get traction on them?
Is there, do you do any kind of referral incentive program?
Yeah, we do. Around 1 user out of 10 do some referrals, win some free months, that kind of thing. Right. And you get 1 or 2 people aboard. Yeah. But 1 out of 10 is not enough. So we see some traction, but no acceleration.
Do you, if I refer a friend, does the friend also get benefit from signing
up? Yeah, you get another 3 months.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
A bit like Dropbox.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so that's like a checkbox. What about for Salesforce? Do you do anything around like importing contact information into Salesforce?
Exactly, yeah. We're present on the App Exchange. That's the product was out just 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So there is probably more value because Salesforce is complicated product and we're making it easier.
So yeah.
Why aren't you talking right now to salespeople and like making them use it, even install it for them, aggressively do it, and then keep just talking to them and finding out what's going on? Like what else do they need? No, Adam, you don't think so?
No. I would try to expand the value proposition. You know, I mean, some salespeople are really methodical and left-brained and care about using software and things like that. But there are also a lot of salespeople who really just go for the sale, and they don't like pay attention to better tools or things like that. So I would try to find a way to expand the value proposition by adding more functionality into the software. Like, I don't know what other things it could do for the customers.
But the way you find out is you ask the customers. You're like, hey, when the salesperson tells you this wasn't that useful, you ask why. Or like, what else would you want to see? Don't just guess, right? Like, just find out from the customers.
An example might be contact reminders. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, oh, remind me to reach out to this person in 3 months, you know, especially if there are some people who don't use Salesforce. Or like, one thing that I've been really needing in my life recently is personal CRM. So like keeping track of like the potential co-founders I might want to work with, right? And like keeping track of, oh, okay, every 3 months I want to like be reminded to like reach out to them and say hello. Or like keeping a list of people that I might want to recruit later, you know, or things like that. So
tag them or something like that.
Yeah, tags or like also like reminders, like to contact them. Just stuff like this. Like I would try to talk to your existing customers. And what's great about them is that you already have like a sets of like tens of thousands of customers, and that's like tremendously wonderful, you know.
Yeah, you know how it is.
I mean, I think it's great. Just email like 500 of them or 1,000 of them and say, hey, like what features would you want in the software? Send out like a Survey Monkey or something, and then like read through the results and like just ask them, what are the problems that you have in your like contact management life? It's probably a reasonable way to go about it.
Segment on server. Excellent.
What else? Anything else?
Well, distribution is our main problem, so no, that's really what we are focusing on.
I also like the idea of getting distribution by expanding the functionality.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
You know, because it's not just like a marketing thing, it also expands your addressable market. And, you know, who knows? Like, I think I wouldn't be super surprised if, like, in 8 years, if you keep working on this and expanding it slowly, you actually have, like, a medium-sized company. Because I do think that I don't think any of us in here would say that our lives are like just great, like for our like content management and like people management. So I think there's still important work to be done.
And what do you think about mobile? I know that Zobni Smarter is on mobile, but
yeah. Oh, I think mobile is like tremendously powerful. I mean, things like I just had a meeting and like I want to take notes on that meeting so that the next time I'm like meeting with that person, I can remember what we spoke about, you know?
Yeah.
And mobile just like allows you to take care of like more like remembering and like data entry stuff in a lot more of an elegant way, you know, because it's just like, if like I'm chilling at a cafe and like I'm bored, like, oh, I can just like pop into this thing and like send off some emails to people I want to remember, you know? Or like maybe it's like birthday reminders. Maybe I like want to remember to like send my mom flowers on her birthday or something, you know? There are all these like different things I think you could do, and I would just try to like test a lot of them through surveys and like see what kind of new functionality your existing user base wants.
What worked best at Zobni?
What worked best at Zobni? We did a lot of PR. We did a lot of... so for Zobni for Outlook, it was all search, like email search.
Yeah.
And the attachments, so like being able to find files quickly.
That was really great.
Inside your email.
It was really great.
And then the social network integration. So like being able to find people's LinkedIn profiles easily or their Facebook profiles easily.
And did you do a lot of AdWords or that kind of thing?
No, we didn't do any. I mean, we tested it all and none of it
because
worked.
we tested it too, and since people are not searching actively
Yeah,
for
exactly. No one's searching for like, I want a better address book, you know.
Exactly.
So you could also think of that as a way to figure out what new functionality to build. Like, you know, you can go on the like Google AdWords. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Google AdWords site has a keyword tool where you can type in a search query and it'll tell you how many search queries, how many of these searches are ran every month globally, and then it'll tell you how expensive those keywords are. So you could just say, oh, okay, like, do people want birthday reminders, or do they want like meeting notes, or do they want like contacts, like reminders or something?
Okay.
And you can also, and I'd also ask your user base, your existing user base, for ideas. Like, it's really great that you have a user base that you can just leverage to like figure out what to go do next. Getting started is like the hard part.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, great, thanks.
All right, hi, I'm Alex. I wanted to know, since one of our fears that we're going to ship an SDK that's going to make the app crash. I mean, we have tested our SDK, and apparently it's not crashing for now. And I know with Zobni, you had quite a few negative comments on your launch. And how do you recover from such a bad press, and how do you make a great product after that?
Yeah, so programming for Microsoft Outlook is like really insanely difficult. And desktop software is really insanely difficult. So what we found was every time we went up an order of magnitude in our user base, we found new crashes and new bugs. So, you know, user number 1, it was like, oh, okay, here are all these bugs. We went and fixed them. Then we got to 10 users, like just our friends, and then we still found new bugs, and then we fixed those. And then when we got to 100 users, we found more bugs, and then 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, and 1 million. And it's really crazy, like the different kind of shit you find. It's like someone running like Swedish Windows, and they're running McAfee Enterprise Antivirus 8.0, and when this happens, if you try to fork a process from Outlook, it'll think it's a virus and it will kill Outlook, you know, or like someone like 12 years ago wrote an add-in for Outlook that like does something in like a completely insane way, and then that like kills Outlook when it's used with Zobni, and just like all kinds of crazy stuff. And so what we did was we limited the rate at which we admitted new users. So actually when we launched at TechCrunch 40, I wanted to just like launch to like public beta, which means that anyone can download the software. And that was actually like the wrong approach. And like my co-founder convinced me that we should do private beta, which means that you can come to our website, watch like the video, understand what it is, and why it would be useful to you, and then you can type in your email address and we'll email you when it's ready. And so we had a backlog of like 100,000 signups or something. And every day we would admit, you know, 500 new signups. And whenever there were crashes, we had a lot of tools that were built around We do like phone calls with users who are having problems, and we'd like remote into their machine, and we had like all this diagnostic software, and it was incredibly painful. I'd hope that it's not that painful for you guys on mobile, and it probably won't be, but it's still a really important issue.
Just to clarify, I think his question was more, how do you recover the brand after you've been crashing? It's like, so I think you said that the question was really actually like, we shipped an SDK that basically crashed people's apps, broke the trust that they had in us, and now what do we do?
We never really figured that out. I mean, I think eventually the users who had that bad experience get really old and they die, and then they're new people. No, I mean,
well, those people were using Outlook, so that's actually probably true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have like any magic tricks for really figuring that out. I think one of the most important things is like try to crash as elegantly as possible. So it's like if your thing isn't working, you just don't show the ad instead of like crashing the whole app. Like to the extent that might not be possible in 100.0% of cases, but maybe it's possible in like 90%. And just try to be as elegant as possible. And then release slowly. Like don't, if you have like just like a huge client, you're like, just wait until you've gone through a few more of these intermediate steps, and you've like worked out a few more of the kinks.
No, yeah, so I think you're trying to ask like, what do we do right now? And just to keep this short, since this question's gone on for a while, 37 Signals has some stuff they've written about what to do, and just like being really apologetic, just totally confess you screwed up. Just go read that post. It might be in one of their books, or it might be online. It really handles this situation. Like, we are so sorry we screwed up. Yeah. And like offer free stuff and like, seem personable. Don't, like big companies will say, we're sorry if we caused you any inconvenience. It's like, F you. Like, you broke my app. Like, that's more than inconvenient. But like, if you're personal and act like a human being, people will really appreciate that, and you can win back faith and trust.
Next question.
Keep going.
Should we ask?
I have a personal one.
Yeah.
You did YC twice.
Right.
Why after such a successful screen, you will go giving 7% of your equity like that for almost free?
Well, because the family wouldn't take me. So the question was, why did you do YC a second time? And I said the family wouldn't take me. It's because for Parse, I knew our target market was developers, mobile developers. Mobile developers love Hacker News and YC, and I knew I would spam the hell out of Hacker News. And I did all of those things. And so the YC brand name in the Valley can be incredibly valuable for companies that are pitching to the Hacker News audience.
Stripe is another example.
Like Stripe is an amazing company. It's going to be enormous, and you likely use it if you take payments online already. And they need the YC branding because it makes them sexier than the non-YC companies.
So if you had started a company like selling pet food online, you would not have done Y Combinator again?
I probably wouldn't have. My co-founders really wanted to do it because they hadn't done it before, so that was a large reason. YC has a lot of value, but like after Scribd, I mean, YC added a ton of value for Parse. Like I would do that again in a heartbeat, but I think it would depend on the kind of company. Like Anson did Cardpool. He went through YC a second time. Didn't really need to. Exec did YC again. YC has, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about Y Combinator. There's a lot of really, really good things about YC. Like the 3-month deadline to demo day. It's like, like in college, like the only time you ever actually did work was like the night before the paper was due, or like you'd only study like the day before the exam. That's what YC feels like. Like it feels like there's an exam every week, and then demo day is this giant scary day when, yeah, it's like finals, and you're like, oh God, I don't know anything. I haven't been to class all semester. So that's like one example of it being super helpful. The community is so supportive. This is true not just in tech. Just having a like-minded community of people around you with similar goals who want to see you succeed and will be supportive when things are down, because in startups there's these wild ups and downs. One day I thought Scrib would be bigger than Google, the next I thought it was going to be a failure, and they say, no, don't worry, like, you know, it'll be fine. And you just can't overestimate that value.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You should do your talk about, you were talking about Dropbox versus like more base hits.
Yeah, well, the Valley suffers from this disease where everyone wants to start the next Instagram. And like, it's not, like Instagram was not a real business in the sense that it never made $1 before Facebook bought it. And so you can play the M&A lottery, right? You can hope that M&A at Facebook decides, you know, we want to own photos on mobile, and that's great. Like, I'm so happy for Kevin and everyone else there. But especially if I was in France, I wouldn't try to play that game because there's no M&A here. So I would really focus on building a real business. And DHH has a great talk. Go listen to just to keep this short, go listen to his 2008 talk at Startup School. It's the best talk that we've had at Startup School. And you can just build a nice product that sells to the Fortune 5 million. Lots of companies have all kinds of problems that are just not being addressed right now online. Like, you can build a Basecamp instead of an Instagram. Basecamp makes a lot more money than Instagram does, right? But it's just, you don't talk about it, and we don't hear about it because Instagram and Facebook are sexier stories. And so we just get this hyped over and over in our heads. But if I was here, I would build a Basecamp instead of an Instagram. And I would not build a consumer app because consumer apps tend to be really hard to monetize. And even in YC, most of them fail. There's one or two consumer successes. Like, there's one or two Snapchats a year. But there's a lot more that are just, there's a lot of companies out there, right? There's a power law in terms of the valuations of companies out there. So like, there's very, very few Instagrams, but there's like a lot of companies that just quietly make $10 million a year. And like, okay, this might sound, I'm making this sound easy. If you can get 200 customers paying you $40 a month, you're making almost 100 grand a year right there, which is like more than which is like a decent salary. And if you can get 2,000 customers at $40 a month, like that's $1 million a year. Like, there are so many niches you can target where there are 2,000 customers who have a problem, who have corporate cards and will pay every month and not look at their credit card statement. So many of those, right? Like, I met a guy who built a SaaS service, subscription as a service, for hemp stores and had like 2,000 customers, right? So it's like lots of businesses, just go talk to businesses and find out what their problems are. Okay, like another example, appointment reminder. Patrick McKenzie's company. Like, turns out, hey, you know what a big problem is for a lot of companies? People don't show up for their appointments. Like, these are, like, this is why I don't like the solve your own problem thing, because I don't have this problem. But, a hair salon does. It turns out, actually, hair salons are not his best customer. Exterminators are. Because for an exterminator, if I drive my van across town with 4 people and all these chemicals, and that person isn't at home, that costs me a lot of money. And so they'll pay him like $1,000 a month just because he can say, like, you'll get 40% more of your clients showing up. And that's like an obvious win. So like, build real companies, and you can do this here, and it stops this obsession with fundraising, and like, especially if fundraising is hard here, then go the other way, go the Basecamp way, turn left. And in the Valley, everyone's turning right. Let's drop out of MIT and raise 1.5 for our app to do something no one wants.
That's good.
Yeah, I had a question. You said, I think it was for Scrib, you raised 35 million, or for Parse?
In total, Scrib was 35 over the Angel, ABC
exactly.
rounds.
So you've had to deal with a number of different types of investors, angels and Series A, Series B, etc.
Yeah.
What can you say about the relationship you had with these investors? How did you deal with them? how do they deal with each other? Because I'm guessing the interest of an angel investor is going to be different than the interest of a Series C or B investor, and you're kind of in the middle between all that. So, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So the question is like, what was it like raising angel, then a Series A, then a Series B, then a Series C? How are those people different? How do you interact with them? I could talk for an hour about this, but the short version is angels are like so awesome and super helpful and don't get like really any rights. So like that's awesome because the number one thing people screw up and that we screwed up is giving away on terms for higher valuations. There's this obsession with valuations that is so stupid because people will give away like veto rights on like hiring employees or equity grants. Like, so it's like if I want to give, after like a Series A, if I want to give like over 1 point to an engineer, like of equity, good luck. Like most VCs will just say, nope, sorry, we don't do that. That's not the 90s model that we've been using for the last 20 years, and so not going to do that. And so people will do stupid things like give up like 3x liquidation preference, which means if the company sells for less than 3x of the valuation, the VCs just take all the money. Or people will give up like participating preferred stock. They're just, so people will do such dumb things. It's really dangerous because if you're inexperienced raising a venture round, these guys are sharks who they all day long, they're like car sales. It's like going to like a car dealership and you never bought a car before, and these used car salesmen know, or they're just going to beat you in a negotiation because they know what this is all they do. Like it's like why I don't day trade because Goldman Sachs is going to beat the crap out of me. In the case of Scribd, we raised a really good Series A. What tends to happen is that the later money going in is like just kind of like they see it's a winner and they're like, okay, like we're happy with a 2-3x. But the early guys, they want like a 10x. Like the Series A guys take on more risk. They come in earlier, and they also demand 20% of your company at least. You can get away with 15, but otherwise they say like, oh, I can't justify giving away my valuable time on your board, which is like one meeting every 2 months for like a couple hours or like once a month. I'm like, really? But like, and so PG was talking about this, how he thinks the future, this will change and VCs will take smaller percentages, and I think he's right. But in terms of interacting with it, it sucks when you lose board control. Just never, ever, ever lose board control. That's like the one term. Just if you take away one thing, just never lose board control. Once you've done that, you're in deep. You will be in hell. Giving up board seats, hold them like life preservers, and you're in the middle of the ocean. Be really careful about that because I've seen people do it where they think like, oh, this important advisor will take a board seat. They'll just become an advisor. They don't need a board seat. And I've seen a lot of good companies get destroyed, and a lot of good CEOs get fired by their boards because the boards have that power, and they'll fire you from your own company. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's the legal angle, which is like important in knowing what the different terms of the investments are, and that's like Venture Hacks is like a great blog with like it breaks down all these different terms that you can reference, and on any of these terms, if you just Google them, there are enough like blogs like VC's blogging, etc. And it's important. It's important to understand all the mechanics, and then where there's a trade-off between taking better terms at like a lower valuation, I would do that because control is super important. Everyone basically agrees on that. And then in practice, in terms of like managing your board and managing like your angel investors, I think like some angel investors are just kind of along for the ride and they're a source of money, and like that can be fine if that's what you need and that's what you want. Other angel investors like the ad guys, if you guys can find angel investors who have experience in the ad world, that's like wonderful and you want them to invest and you want them to be invested and you want them to have equity in your company because then they're going to be able to justify taking like a 90-minute call on the weekend when they're like supposed to be hanging out with their family to help you guys.
Or just like making that critical introduction that you need to that amazing sales guy from AdMob who crushed it. Like, yeah, like angels are great and are arguably, many startups say, more helpful than their VCs.
It depends on the VC.
I just feel like raising VC is like, it's like secret societies in college where like you kind of wonder what was going on in there. And then once you're inside, you're like, wow, that sucked. That was really, it was like really boring and like just painful. And like more meetings I have to attend.
We're having another question here.
Yes. Can you guys tell us about the process of selling your company? Like,
yeah, first let me do one thing about fun. Okay, yeah, sorry. Talk about selling your company. The process sucks.
Sorry, if I can add a sub-question, why you did not sell Scrib?
Yeah, okay, well, Scrib is profitable. Well, no, okay, I'll come to this. One thing though, okay, if I forgot to mention this, if you do want to fundraise, the single best resource that you can buy is a $9 ebook called Pitching Hacks by the Venture Hacks guys. That alone will get you like to like 80% competency in like a couple hours. So just like go download that. It's $9, so just pay them for it. And it's Pitching Hacks. Pitch, like the baseball pitching hacks. Just read that. That helped us. We had no idea what the hell we were doing. And it talks about all this stuff like board control. Okay, now selling your company. That process is, okay, it's awful. It's months of due diligence. You have to prove you own all your IP. They want to like look at the bios of all your team members and decide who gets how much money and this huge negotiation. It's not just like the price of Parsons 85 million. Most of the time was spent like, well, what do my employees get? I want to look out for, you know, my people, like for my team, make sure they do well. The months of lawyers sending redlined Word documents back and forth about the terms of the deal, the lawyers made more money than I did off the Parse acquisition. If you looked at all the Word docs they sent, like, it's insane. The process is painful, stressful, and then it can like fall apart at the last minute, and it often does. Google has left so many companies at the altar. They took 3411 all the way to the altar, and then said, actually, we're going to release our own thing, just like yours, and it's free. Yeah. And they're like, oh, that sucks. And like, wow, that was 6 months. And Dig, same thing. Google took them all the way to the end, like till like the step where you send the money, and then actually that check never came. And now Dig is, you know, basically dead. Yeah, and it ruins you. So like, because like, right, all you'll ever do is like the first thing you think about in the morning, the thing you think about in the shower is like what you're gonna work on and do. And those 6 months are like, you just think about the sale and the stress and the lawyers, and like you don't get any work done. Your company stalls. And this happens in fundraising too, which is why you have to minimize time fundraising, because you just will not get anything else done. And always have one person just manage the process. Like for fundraising, just have like, if you can, have the best person just do that for like, and then bring in the rest of the team when you have to. But for selling, I can explain why Parse and not Scribd. But let Adam talk about Zobni, because I actually want to hear the Zobni story.
I guess, well, yeah, no, there's this like somewhat confidential stuff that I could or could not talk about. But yeah, I mean, being left at the altar is like really, so there's like a point when you're selling your company when you tell all the employees, okay, we're going to sell our company. And then that like completely shifts everything that they're thinking about also. Like they're no longer thinking about, oh, what code am I going to write? What do customers need? How do I get it in their hands as quickly as possible? And it switches to, oh, what's going to happen to me? Am I still going to have a job? Like how much money am I going to make? How long am I going to be locked up for? Are they going to like completely destroy this culture that I really love and enjoy? And there are all these things that happen. And so I guess what's the lesson there? It's like a really painful process, and so you should expect it to be painful. Having one person work on it and not the other founders, I think, is a like tremendously brilliant like approach.
Just to add, your investors will pay you not to sell your company, because if someone's trying to buy it, it usually means like the investors think, oh, we can probably do better than this. like maybe we can 10x that. And so they will pay you to not sell your company.
They have a portfolio. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So they have a portfolio. So all they care about is average return, and they make the most money by taking the most risk. And if a company is like, you know, doing really well, they'd rather have the chance of the higher outcome. So sometimes what will happen is you get incoming acquisition interest, and you have a negotiation with your investors where you're like, oh, we will keep going, but I want to take some money off the table. So then your investors will buy some of your shares from you. And I've seen that before. Also, like an acquisition offer is a great way to raise money because investors are like, oh yeah, like there's a company XYZ who is willing to pay $15 million for this thing. So like it must be worth something, and if we can keep going, and you can kind of pitch a story about how you can become more valuable to the potential acquirers. Also having like 2 acquirers or like more than 1 acquirer in the deal can be amazing, because what happens when you sell your company is there's basically 2 stages. The first is what's called a letter of intent. And the letter of intent basically is a high-level outline of the deal. Okay, it's going to be like this $1 million. These are like the basic high-level terms. And you sign that, but it's non-binding. And then you spend 6 weeks negotiating what are called the definitive documents, which are like the things you actually sign that is actually the deal. And until you sign the definitive documents, it's not for sure that you're going to be acquired. So if you get letters of intent from multiple companies, not only can you play them off on price to like try to get the bids up, but you can also play them off on terms. And you also want as specific of an LOI as possible. So the acquirer will want all these like vague things, and like not to list all these, what's going to happen to the employees, what's going to happen to the company. Are we going to have to move the like company from like San Francisco to like Seattle, where the acquirer is headquartered, and like all these things. So just get like as specific of LOIs as possible. I'm probably talking too quickly.
And it must sound like, oh, how great you sell your company. Yeah. Then you get 4 years of working at like Megacorp as like a VP in some job you don't really like, and you've traded this thing you're hopefully passionate about, and that you enjoyed for like 4 years, 2 to 4 years of like to get your earn out, and you're kind of just like watching the clock tick, and like.
And you did the hardest work already of getting something going.
Yeah, and like so there's a lot of downsides. Like if you can start something that you actually care about, that you enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy it, just sell and get the hell out. But like some of the least happy people I know in the Valley are folks who sold their companies and are just doing nothing now. Because there's nothing more demoralizing than doing nothing. It's just bad for the soul. And
we sound like old people.
I think we are.
Yeah, I mean it's like selling your baby, right? It's like, oh, you put so much work into raising this baby. It started with nothing, and it was really, really painful to get it to change the diapers and everything, and then you sell it, and you're left with just like a lot of money in your bank account, but you like don't have a baby anymore. And if you want to start another baby, you have to like change diapers again and like build a team from scratch and come up with something and take a lot of risk again.
Yeah. It's like when Yahoo offered $1 billion for Facebook back in the day. I thought Zuck was crazy for turning that down. Of course, I was crazy apparently. And they had a board meeting, like, and Peter Thiel's like, well, we should probably discuss this because like this is a lot of money. Like you're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And Zuck said, yeah, but then I'll probably just go try to start another social network after that, and it's not going to be as successful. So like, why would I stop doing that?
And that's why taking money off the table when you get an acquisition offer can also be really useful. Yeah.
On that note, if you're incorporating in the States, which I don't know where you guys incorporate or how that works here, but if you incorporate as a Delaware C Corp, try to get the FF stock. It'll cost you an extra $1,000 or $2, but it allows you to sell stock to investors or private individuals without screwing up your fair market value 409A price.
Yeah. That's pretty obscure.
I don't think anyone. If we had more time.
Ça existe pas en France.
Any other questions? I thought that was good. Yeah.
I have a question on that same topic.
Yeah.
All you said is about the process once you have an acquirer. Yeah. But how do you find that acquirer, especially in a market such as France, where you don't really have an acquisition market?
Yeah. So the question was, how do you get acquisition interest in the first place? And usually, like when you start building the company, especially if you know you want to sell it, you develop relationships with the potential acquirers like along the way, right? So if you're like in the hotel pricing industry, you should be like meeting with people who are also in your industry and maybe adjacent players who might want to expand or whatever. And you don't say, hey, I want to like have a relationship with you in case you ever want to buy my company. You say like, hey, I want to have a relationship with you so I can like learn about the industry and like have a relationship and maybe we can like trade like ideas back and forth. You can talk more about this. You did this.
Yeah, there's a huge game of like who you know, especially in the Valley, on this. Like I now know like M&A everywhere, but there's this huge game of like someone just gets inspired or like one person you talk to gets like, we have to own Parse. And like, it might not even make sense. Like, and then they tell the M&A people, and the M&A people, their job is to make acquisitions or they get fired. So for them, they're incentivized to make it happen too. So it's like, it's kind of a game of networking, but you should never build to sell because if you try to do that, if you're actively trying to sell your company, you're not gonna be working on the product and your company's going to suffer. I've rarely seen the build to sell approach work.
But you can just spend like 5% of your energy.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, yeah. So I mean, that's one of the bright spots about being in like a tech ecosystem is like you'll just generally meet people from other companies, and even like M&A people because they go to the same parties and happy hours. Getting those offers though is really, it's like that, it's just that dance of knowing, and also, okay, you know what's helpful are your investors, because your investors are already rich because they're investing, and they know M&A and all these important people at all these companies, and so they can be like, hey, you should take a look at like Zobni, like that, that thing's killer, and like they'll do that, and then that sort of thing happens all the time. Actually, this is one good thing about Sequoia. Is like they can help, like for a VC firm, they can really help you get acquired because they know everyone. Like if you have like Mike Moritz on your board, like you basically like you're gonna sell to someone, or IPO.
Yeah.
So yeah, having good investors who are well connected, that helps if you actually want to sell.
So why don't you set up in France? We have good wine.
I'm looking for a sublet. If anyone here knows of one, I'm actually trying to stay for a while.
That would be interesting.
Although I hear August is bad here.
Any other question there? Yeah.
YC does accept international applicants. Actually, Audrey might be the right person to talk about this. But YC does take lots of international kids. My batch had tons of international kids. You apply like anyone else. You have to promise to move to the States, though. You can't just stay in Paris. And Paris beats the hell out of Palo Alto or Mountain View, which suck. So San Francisco's okay, though. Paris is better. But that happens all the time. You apply just like anyone else. If you have a good team and a good idea, and these days probably a working product or something resembling product market fit, they will let you in.
Any other question? No? Okay.
I have a question. Where are the drinks?